Out of the gate, JT from home today. We are home on the main streets of Summerlin, where OMG, oh my God, it's raining. I'm seeing some droplets in the pool. Alert the authorities. We might get some drizzle today out here in Summerlin, Nevada. Hope everybody's doing well. It's our Bucket of Modelo Friday show brought to you by Modelo, the fighting spirit of Modelo. If you want to jump on in, I'm in my guest room studio. I'm going to stream this on YouTube for about 30, 40 minutes. We'll be mostly radio only today. You can drop on into my home on YouTube at JT the Brick and jump in there, and you can listen on any of the platforms. Most importantly, 920 in Vegas. Most of our audience is not in Vegas. They're listening on the Raiders mobile app or LV Sports Network. So you can jump in there, and hope you have a good weekend in advance. At this time last week, I was in Maui. I was on the beach. I was snorkeling with the turtles, man. I was drinking ice cold Modelo's on the beach in Kihei, Maui. Oh, my God. It feels like it was months ago. It was just last week. And now I'm home, and I got my Knicks in the NBA Finals, and I got my Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup Final. And that's the focus of the monologue, as we're brought to you by, again, the fighting spirit of Modelo. A Modelo, proud partner of not only the Raiders, but this show. They are fueling the monologue here as we wrap it up on a Friday. I was out at OTAs yesterday. There's not a lot much to take from OTAs. Tom Brady was there. Fernando Mendoza was there. Brock Bowers, Tyler Linderbaum. But today, when I got up this morning, and I got up real early this morning, like at the crack of dawn, I was on a radio show back east because I jumped on a show, which I like to do. I did a podcast already today with Tom Looney, JT and Looney, the first of our summer series podcast that we do every summer, if you're able to download that. And then I started looking through my Raider notes, as the Raiders send out notes every day as part of my show prep. And everybody was trying to take away what's going on at OTAs, which the attendance is really strong under Clint Kubiak. You heard Andrew Janocko yesterday. We're going to probably play about 5 or 6 minutes of that a little bit later on this hour. And we're going to dive into what the Raiders are trying to accomplish this offseason. And as I was looking at the notes and trying to figure out what everybody else is talking about, it jumped out at me that this whole season, the entire season, is going to be predicated on a brand new offense. I like the attack. I like to attack. I like to throw it deep, the way Mr. Al Davis wanted to attack deep, throw the bomb and connect downfield. And I think that's going to change now. I think the Raiders are going to have a very elaborate offense. It's going to be changing on every drive and every play, and it's going to be completely different than anything we've seen in quite some time, going back to John Gruden. John Gruden was a really good, and I still think a great play caller, elaborate guy who wrote plays, drew up plays in Green Bay with Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, Steve Mariucci. I mean, John Gruden came to the Raiders with a hell of a playbook. And the Raiders were able to institute that playbook with Rich Gannon, Tim Brown, some really good players. And they were always, they were always attacking. And they were doing it in a certain way. Then I know you hate when I bring it up, but Josh McDaniels came in with one of the greatest playbooks ever in the history of the NFL. And the architect of that playbook was Josh McDaniels. It was given to Tom Brady, who executed that playbook better than any playbook in the history of the NFL. I repeat, dating back to Joe Montana and Bill Walsh, you could put the success of the Patriots' Tom Brady playbook with anybody. And that playbook, which I've studied and I've looked at because I covered the Patriots, how could you not? We saw what the Patriots were able to do. The Patriots took a playbook led by a quarterback who was able to dictate everything at the line of scrimmage instantly. If you get a chance to hear Tom Brady speak, and he does a lot of speaking engagements, he talks about how he was able to over-prepare with the knowledge that he had to figure out what a defense was doing as the defense was setting up. And that was really the strength of Tom Brady. Tom Brady would have the play called by Josh McDaniels, not by Tom Brady. The play was called by Josh McDaniels. And Tom Brady would go to the line of scrimmage and he would look over at the defense. And Tom Brady had such a great advantage in those moments, those seconds, that Tom Brady instantly knew who would be open. It's really an incredible deep topic. Tom Brady would come to the line of scrimmage with Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Randy Moss. And he would go, okay, they have too high coverage on Randy. I'm going to put Julian Edelman, he called them Jules. I'm going to put Jules in motion, and I'm going to slide Gronkowski over the middle because he changed the play if he did. And he would always throw to the guy who was wide open. That was what was so amazing about Montana, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady. Not Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, one of the greats of all time. He threw into coverage. Aaron Rodgers is the greatest back shoulder thrower I've ever seen. Better than Brady, better than Montana, better than Marino, better than them all. But Brady always threw to the guy that was wide open. And that would drive me crazy because he was never throwing it into double or triple coverage. Maybe double coverage to Randy Moss here and there. But did you ever notice how wide open everybody was? It didn't work with Josh McDaniels because he had Jimmy Garoppolo, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, a fine young man, but he didn't have Tom Brady. So all the concepts of what Josh McDaniels wanted to bring to the Raiders failed miserably because he didn't have the quarterback anywhere near the talent level of Tom Brady. So now that brings me to Clint Kubiak as I was at practice yesterday. And I didn't notice a lot sitting there on the far side of the field. But what I noticed in the drills is that everybody is getting to the line of scrimmage quickly. And they're being told that they better know what the hell they're doing because things are going to be moving faster. They're going to be sharper. They're going to be even smarter than Chip Kelly. I mean, it takes a lot to be smarter than Chip Kelly. You don't have to like Chip Kelly. He didn't do well here. But, man, that guy was a mastermind for a couple of years, and his offense fell on its face with Geno Smith. Why did the offense fail? Because there was a disconnect between the head coach, Pete Carroll, and Chip Kelly on the type of offense they wanted to run with Geno Smith. They couldn't run it because they couldn't pass protect and they couldn't run block, and it was destined to fail. When I was in meetings with Chip Kelly and he explained the offense, I was fascinated by his discussion. I was fascinated because, crap, I'm in the room with Chip Kelly along with Matt Millen, Eric Allen, Jason Horowitz, Lincoln Kennedy, Kirk Morrison. We're sitting there listening to this guy. And, man, this guy is just telling you what he's going to do and how excited he was to have Geno Smith. And that wasn't a lie. That was very sincere. He wanted to do certain things, and it couldn't work. Wow, that's like buying a Maserati. Or that's like buying a high-end car, and you can't even get it out of park. What an epic disaster that was. It torpedoed this season that brought us to Fernando Mendoza and now Clint Kubiak. So what I'm looking forward to in the next month or two is studying this offense from the limited degree we're going to see it at practice and training camp and OTAs. They're not going to show us a lot. Why would they? They're not going to show the other teams a lot. But we saw a lot from Clint Kubiak last year in Seattle. And what we saw as I went back and watched some of those games, and I'm doing my own research, is that Sam Darnold understood that Clint Kubiak had a plan. And the plan was to get to the line of scrimmage and run the best available play that he saw that Clint Kubiak called that would involve Jackson Smith and Jigba, a heavy dose of a running game, and players that were in motion trying to find the soft aspects of the defense. That's what this is all about. It hit me like a ton of bricks, excuse the pun, yesterday when I was driving home from Deep Henderson, that this is what this is all about. The sphere of the sword, okay, the sphere of the arrow is going to be led not by the quarterback, but the center, Tyler Linderbaum, who's going to get to the line of scrimmage and be able to check the coverage. He's going to be able to see where Colt Miller is and Jackson Powers Johnson or DJ Glaze, whoever ends up starting for this team. And Linderbaum is going to be the point of attack. They are going to be able to run behind him, and he is going to plow people and knock their asses down. He's going to be able to pull. He's going to be able to pass protect, and it's going to start with him. And then I believe, I'm just guessing because I don't know it to be true, but this offense is going to run through Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty. We're getting the hints now of Christian McCaffrey and the success and the fact that Clint Kubiak loved his limited time with Christian McCaffrey. Okay, Brock Purdy, quarterbacks come and go, Jimmy G, but his time with Christian McCaffrey proved that he knows that if you got a guy that can catch the ball in space, he could change everything. And now all of a sudden, Clint Kubiak's got Brock Bowers, and he gave us another clue. He told us that he's a football robot. Well, it seems like Kubiak's a coaching robot. They're going to draw plays. They're going to be left alone. Isn't it similar, Kubiak and Brock Bowers? Not guys racing to the microphone going, me, 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 look at me. Guys who just want to play ball and just want to draw plays. And these two are going to work together along with Tyler Linderbaum and Ashton Genty. And now we got the guys who can get it done. Josh McDaniels should have been able to get this done. Chip Kelly should have been able to get this done. The problem is they had no one in confidence to execute the playbook. The offensive playbook, which was genius by both Chip Kelly and Josh McDaniels, was dead on arrival because they had subpar quarterbacks who should not have been signed, and they had inferior offensive lines that couldn't do anything. Well, that's changed this offseason courtesy of John Spidek, who went out and did he overpay for Tyler Linderbaum? Well, a lot of people think he did. I don't care. I don't care if anybody overpays for anything. But he got the guy he wanted. Now he's got Ashton Genty. That was John Spidek's first draft pick. I thought he played pretty well last year considering he was running into a wall. He couldn't even move without getting attacked by the opposing defense. Now we have Fernando Mendoza, Kirk Cousins. Aiden O'Connell looked really good yesterday. I'm still getting heat because last year, I forget what practice it was. It was a practice I said Aiden O'Connell looked great. And guys were busting my balls. Like, well, really? You're telling us Aiden O'Connell looked great? Yeah, he actually did look great in a couple of practices last year. But this, to me, was about Tyler Linderbaum for me yesterday. And as I watched and I read some of the notes earlier today as I prepped for the show, I think everybody else talked about that also. Everybody else believes that now we have a game changer in Linderbaum for the next 3 years, and we only got Brock Bowers another 3 years. Sorry, everybody, unless we start franchise tagging him. Brock Bowers isn't going to be here forever unless we start winning football games. Same could be said about Ashton Genty. And we got Mendoza, who seems to be cut from the same cloth as Tom Brady, eventually, where he can get to the line of scrimmage and see the play and know who's going to be open. So that's what this offense is going to be about. Kubiak's going to give you the play. Janoko's going to give you the play all week in Henderson. They're going to run it in Henderson, and it's going to work because when they're competing with Henderson opponents, it's going to be other teammates that are wearing shorts and are not allowed to sack the quarterback. Max Crosby likes to wreck the practice. No one else can. And the plays are going to work in Henderson. And then they're going to have to find a way to tweak these plays and bring them to the game when the real bullets are flying. And Kubiak's plays, led by Tyler Linderbaum, should work much better than anything we've seen since the Raiders moved to Las Vegas from Oakland, California. John Gruden had it going. He really did, until Brett Musburger told me they did a calculated hit on John Gruden and took him out, and everything changed. Then Gruden was gone, and coach after coach and GM after GM came in, and none of it worked. They all had a plan, like Mike Tyson said, until they got punched in the face. Now, for the first time in a while, and again, I'm not a hypocrite. I believed in a lot of the other coaches and their plans. But now you can really understand what they're trying to do. It took one day for me at OTAs to sit quietly on the sideline and to watch what they're trying to do in shorts and what they're trying to run and say, I don't know much. I'm going to learn and try to be a sponge. but from everybody I'm going to interview and talk to over the next couple of months, it's about this new offense, which is going to be buttoned up, ready to go, and it's going to be versatile. You're going to hear that word a lot today that I'm going to say, versatile, because that's what Clint Kubiak wants to do. He wants everybody to be able to play multiple positions. Big hint. Big hint. Your job is not safe with this team on the offensive line unless you're versatile. He will take you out and put someone in if they are more versatile. Now, last year was more about politics with the offensive line. Wait a second. How come Jackson Powers Johnson isn't playing? Why is he competing in week 14? It was politics. For whatever reason, could you believe it? For whatever reason last year, they couldn't figure out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday who was going to play on the offensive line. High school coaches and JV coaches around America knew who their offensive line was going to be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But this proud organization didn't know who they wanted to put on the offensive line all week. How do you think that helped with morale? When players were leaving the locker room to go to walkthrough and practices and not knowing if they were going to play on the offensive line. And you wonder why this team couldn't run a freaking play? You wonder why this team couldn't run 2 yards? They had no idea who they were blocking from game to game because no one knew who was playing. Now, it seems like it's Tyler Linderbaum and everybody else. We got a guy who's an immovable object. I'd like to say that about Colton Miller. Colton hasn't been available the last couple of years. We're hoping he remains available. So you got Colton Miller at left tackle. You got Tyler Linderbaum at center. And it seems to me that everybody's going to be competing on the offensive line. But this group will be decided on before that double practice with Houston in the preseason, and this offensive line will be cleared to play. And they will be a much improved offensive line that will give this team a chance. That's how I see it. So my big takeaway today as I open up the phones, feels like the phones are locked around here. We got a national show on before me. Everybody needs to listen to me for like 25 minutes every show before they, JT said to call. No, you could have called 20 minutes ago because I can get to you right now, but you didn't. So I'm trying to go fast from home today. I'm trying to get this thing moving today. 702-365-9200. My big takeaway and the focus of this show today is going to be Tyler Linderbaum. He is the biggest game changer I've seen come into the Intermountain Health Performance Center since I've been here with the Raiders in Las Vegas. There's been great players. Great players have played for this team, led by Max Crosby. But Max was in Oakland. I knew Max in Oakland. All right, he came here. The biggest impact player that I'm hoping works is Tyler Linderbaum. He can flip this thing so quickly that we can finally block the Chargers. We can now block the Denver Broncos. We can block the Kansas City Chiefs and Chris Jones up front. We have not been able to do that with mix and match offensive linemen. Offensive guards who were told they can't play center. Centers who won awards in college who were not allowed to play center and had to be forcibly moved to another position. Now we know with Janocko and Kubiak, whoever the best players are, you better be versatile. You better be ready to play. And if you don't play well, we got better players coming behind you that want your job. This is really serious. There's no more screwing around at practice. There's no more I want to be a wrestler or not. There's no more shoot threes and shoot twos. And we'll I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Pete Carroll wanted to shoot baskets. Okay, this group's not shooting baskets. This is much different. And it's based on a new offensive philosophy based in the theories of Gary Kubiak and John Elway, to the 49ers with Christian McCaffrey, to some of the Bill Walsh West Coast models, to what's just buttoned up in Seattle, to the reigning world champions, the Seattle Seahawks, led by Clint Kubiak's offense, that took a middle-of-the-road guy, in my opinion, less than Rich Gannon, Sam Darnold was a higher prospect than Rich Gannon, but he didn't have what Rich Gannon had. And Gannon went to the Super Bowl, and Darnold went to the Super Bowl and won. The reason why Sam Darnold won a Super Bowl, ladies and gentlemen, was Clint Kubiak. Clint Kubiak gave him the tools to win the Super Bowl. Now Clint Kubiak's going to give those tools again to Kirk Cousins, who loves his playbook, and Fernando Mendoza and Aiden O'Connell. So I believe the whole situation should be a lot better when it comes to the center position, the head of the sphere, and that can turn this around quickly. What do you think? 702-365-9200. As we open up the show, he just came from his grandson's kindergarten graduation. The great Chris in West Oakland joins us. How are you, Chris?
Oh, boy, what a great time that was. Hell, at least at high school graduations, you can drink afterwards. Kind of hard to do that at 9 o'clock in the morning, which, as you know me, I'm not above drinking at 9 o'clock in the morning, but I probably would have got some pretty harsh looks from the parents and grandparents there. But that being said, listen, I'm glad you're talking about Linderbaum. You know, you go back in the history of the Raiders. All their great teams, great lines, Jim Otto, Dave Dalby, Don Mosbar, Barrett Robbins, Rodney Hudson. They've all been anchored by a great top-of-the-line center, and the Raiders have that again this year. And also, I think a center like Linderbaum that's going to help with line calls, the quicker we get this line healthy, cohesive, and ready and working like a great unit, I believe that's the quicker to get Mendoza on the field. And with all due respect to Kirk Cousins and the AOC, I don't really care about them. The future of the Raiders is Fernando Mendoza. Winning Super Bowls, winning multiple playoff games is Fernando Mendoza. Yeah, Cousins might be a placeholder. I want Mendoza on the field as quick as he can get because he's the future. But that's not the real reason I called today, JT. NBA time. Listen, man, I know you're in heaven right now, and believe me, as a long-suffering Knicks fan, you and yours, they deserve it. I'm pulling for the Knicks, believe it or not. I don't dislike San Antonio or OKC, but for people like you, I'm pulling for the Knicks for that and another reason. Morbid curiosity will always get the best of me. I want to see how the city of New York will react if they actually win a championship. I'll break down the finals more next week. While I'm rooting for the Knicks, they're going to be an underdog, and I don't think they can beat either team in the West, but they got a shot. They're playing as good as anybody right now. Two things can be true. Yes, the Eastern Conference is a bad conference, but the Knicks are at the top of their game, and whoever comes out of the West will have to be at their best to beat the Knicks. As far as the game tomorrow night, I thought the Spurs were a year away, JT, but the injuries to Williams and Mitchell kind of evened it out a little bit. I'm still going to lean experience in Game 7 at home, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if the Spurs got it done. And defensively, I think they would present all kinds of problems to the Knicks. But I believe we're seeing the beginning of a decades-long rivalry between SGA and Wemby. As young as the Spurs are, as young as OKC is, with the draft picks they have in the next 4 or 5 years, these two teams should control the Western Conference and the NBA in general for a decade. But I'm going OKC in a close game tomorrow, but it wouldn't shock me one bit if the Spurs snuck one on them at home. Thanks, brother. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Chris, and I'm surprised you didn't have a Crown Royal in the car when you left kindergarten graduation. Knowing you, a little shot of Crown Royal leaving your grandson's kindergarten graduation. It is graduation season out there for everyone whose kids have graduated. Back in the day when I grew up and my kids grew up, we didn't have graduation if our kid graduated 4th grade. We didn't have signs saying graduation today, but hey, the world evolves. Congratulations to all the graduates out there. Yeah, my Knicks, Chris made a really good point about what we could see from the Spurs in Oklahoma City. Last night as I was watching that game from home, there was a point where they were both playing brilliant basketball. I mean, tremendous basketball. Where you said to yourself, how can you compare this to Draymond, Steph, Clay, and Durant? I think that level of basketball, I think you would agree, is better than what we're seeing with Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City's really good. They're really good, but they're not Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. That was a real dynasty that was loaded. I mean, loaded. So Oklahoma City, when people say, and they're kind of cracking me, well, JT, you're not going to be able to get by the West. Give me a break. Give me a break. Castle, De'Aaron Fox. You're acting like the Knicks got to go through Bird, Magic, and McHale. It's not like the Knicks got to go through James Worthy, Magic Johnson, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Don't tell me how great Oklahoma City is. Now, if they win back-to-back, they'll be like the 89-90 Pistons. That would be a non-three-peat, but back-to-back. That would remind me, if this Oklahoma City team wins the title, they're going to remind me of the Heatles. LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade. They were pretty good. Huh. You remember how good LeBron James was with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and Udonis Haslem and those teams? They were good. But my Knicks are now at a point where they can beat anybody. They can beat anybody at any time because they're 9 deep. The bench is really good. And I say the same thing about our Vegas Golden Knights. Those of us who are forged in gold. The Vegas Golden Knights. We got an all-star team. We got an all-star team. Everywhere I looked, Hurdle, Dorothea, Carlson, Stone, McNabb, Theodore, Hannafin. We are an all-star team. We match up against everybody. And to tie it to the Raiders, we are not an all-star team. We do not match up against everybody. But we have a core group of all-stars on the Raiders, led by Tyler Linderbaum, Max Crosby, Brock Bowers, and I'm gonna fast forward Ashton Genty because I think he has that ability. The Raiders have a core of young all-stars, Pro Bowlers that they can build around. Now they got to get other Pro Bowlers. The Raiders are only going to win when we get Pro Bowlers, everybody. We're only going to win when we sign Pro Bowlers or develop Pro Bowlers. We're not going to win with a bunch of guys, as the great Raider Mort would say. I go, Mort, what do you think of that guy? He's just a guy. That was a great Raider Mort line. He's just a guy. We've had too many guys on this team. They're just good players. They're not Pro Bowlers. Well, the Golden Knights got a bunch of Pro Bowlers, man. They got a bunch of great players, man, and they can play at a very high level. Raider Nation Drinking Club. Here's Thor out in Summerlin. Thor, don't get nervous. It's just drizzling in our neighborhood here. We're both Summerites here. Don't get concerned about the roads. It's just a drizzle.
What's up, JT? I actually just drove to Albertsons, and it was coming down a little bit, and by the time I came out, it stopped. So I'm not worried at all. I'm not worried about the flood. I'm not worried about my pool overflowing or none of that. I feel confident I'll be okay. JT, I'm calling to talk about Linderbaum. I'm not really in the football mode yet. I'm not trying to think there right now. And your New York Knicks have a puncher's chance. Who cares if they're the underdog? They were not the favorite to come out of the East over Boston or Detroit. So who cares if they're the underdog? If San Antonio goes, they're a young team. New York has a lot more experience there in playing games and whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if New York could somehow pull it out. They're going to be the underdog, but that don't mean they can't win. Vegas doesn't build these giant casinos I'm looking at on favorites winning every game because then everyone would just win betting that, right? Anyway, Linderbaum, I'm so excited for this man. You talk about Pro Bowlers. You talk about great players. As the quarterback of your offensive line, of the man who touches the football on every play, as a guy that actually knows what he's doing and is immovable, this helps everyone. It doesn't just help Colton Miller and JPJ and Clay's and whoever maybe starting at the others. You know what I'm saying? It helps Austin Genty, this is going to help out everything. This is going to help out the defense because now we can run the football. Let's get back to running the football and getting first downs and eating clock and letting Max and whoever else is out there on defense get some rest, not have to come right back in because we went 3 and out in 35 seconds or some nonsense. JT, I'm getting fired back up about football.
Yes.
It's not even June yet. Let's go, baby. Let's go, JT.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Thor.
weekend, my brother.
You do. You do, too. I'm not as fired up as you are about football. I don't hide that. I'm fired up about the NBA Finals. I'm fired up about the Stanley Cup. I'm fired up about what I talked about for 20 minutes, the Raiders' offensive line led by Tyler Linderbaugh. But, we're sitting here in June, man. You know me by now if you've been listening for 30 minutes or 30 years. When I get fired up, I get fired up. I am not there now. This is the summer of sports radio. Even us sports talk radio hosts need a summer, especially as long as I've been doing this. You better believe I'm going to gravitate to the summer. Thank you, Thor, for checking in. That's the monologue, 30 minutes, brought to you by the DeCastroverde Law Group. If you get into an accident, the brothers will win. Brotherswin.com, the DeCastroverde Law Group, brotherswin.com as we open up the show. I'm sitting at home. My wife's in the other room. She made me a beautiful omelet this morning. Had a couple of cups of coffee. I'm going to get in the pool a little bit later on today. One of my buddies turns 50. We're going to take him out tonight for a few cervezas. I'm going to get a head start because I reward myself with a bucket of Modelo's on a Friday. So when I bump into my buddies, I'll probably be 4 Modelo's deep. And my wife will drop me off. Or I will take an Uber because I'm responsible. That's why I'm responsible. I'm allowed to have 4 Modelo's on a Friday. I don't got a wife yelling at me from the upstairs window, put down that Modelo. How dare you have a Modelo? She knows I reward myself with a bucket of Modelo's on Friday because I like to work my ass off and I love to talk sports. 702-365-9200. No guests today, just some phone calls. I've been blanking and moaning all week about a hockey call. Will I get a hockey call in the next 10 minutes? Or should I have to move to Detroit, Toronto, Denver? What's going on? We're in the Stanley Cup. Carolina, Montreal tonight. I think Carolina closes them out, and we take on the Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final.
Touchdown! He is back, baby! Brock Bowers, 27 yards over the middle, and the Raiders with 1:52 to go, regain the lead.
Yeah, he's kind of a football robot in a good way. He's a football robot from heaven. He's a Cadillac out there. We got to get the most out of Brock. Wherever he goes, he's been successful in college and high school, whoever's coached him. Just can't say enough great things about him. Love his work ethic. He is a standard bearer.
That is Clint Kubiak talking about the robot from heaven, Brock Bowers. Open lines, Clay told me whoever was on hold dropped, which is embarrassingly pathetic on a Friday, that a caller can't wait 3 minutes before we come back. Yeah, I'm in one of those moods today. Wake up. I'm here from home working today. This is a job. We want to Raider fans. We don't want to hear from me talking by myself for 2 hours. So wake up. We got a hockey team in the Stanley Cup final, and I've been blanking and moaning about it for 3 weeks, and it still sucks that we don't have hockey fans here every day. So you better believe I'm worked up, and I'm not going to slow down until this team drinks from the cup. And if they do win the cup, I might allow you to call this show if you're a freaking bandwagon fan and you aren't here for the Stanley Cup. So if you want to be here for my Stanley Cup celebration, you better be here because we're going to have a party, 702-365-9200 as we jump in. So Kubiak says this week he's from heaven. He's a football robot. Well, you got a little bit of heaven, a reference to God, which I love. I love God references. Who could you not? Right? And then you get the robot in Brock, which is what Brock is. He's all ball. Kubiak's all ball. Pete Carroll's all ball, but Pete Carroll liked to do some quirky things. He liked to do some different things. He liked to, jump on you and pin you and fake like he's wrestling. He liked to have you shoot hoops. No more hoops. No more wrestling. No more. We're done. We tried it. Should have worked. It didn't work. A lot of things went wrong. We wish Coach Carroll well. He's an amazing human being, an amazing legacy coach. He's one of the all-time greats. Now Clint Kubiak comes in with an opportunity to kind of give us his look at all this, and it seems like it's going to be all ball. A really good all ball coach, and we knew that already coming in because he comes from the legacy of his dad And I think if you remember Gary Kubiak, who won a Super Bowl 50 for the Denver Broncos, he was kind of all ball too. Does anybody remember Gary Kubiak? You probably don't remember his press conferences much unless you lived in Denver, right? He was an all ball guy, and that's what's going to happen. Mike Vrabel was an all ball guy too. Some recent news with Mike Vrabel that doesn't give him the ability to be the robot that he was. Let's get out to Paul in Oakland, California today. Great to have you from the East Bay. Paul, what's happening?
Hey, I'm loving what the Raiders are doing right now, man. It'll take a year or two, but I love what they're doing. We should have did this a long time ago. Get a young guy coming in to control what was going on instead of these old people. But Kubiak should steer us in the right direction, man. And all the players that we have, they're young. They're energetic. They're ready to play, too. So hopefully we get back to where we were before, man. Let's get the nation going again, man. Damn.
I don't want to wait a year or two, Paul. You said a year or two. 2 years is a long time. That's 2028. I want to get this thing moving, Paul, a little bit sooner than later.
Well, yeah, it's not going to turn it overnight, man. Give it 1 year, then next year we can do something, man. But get us 500 first, and then we get the playoffs, and then we'll move on. It's not going to turn overnight, man. I don't know.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Appreciate the call, Paul. Thank you. It's not going to turn overnight. Paul wants to get to 500 first. Well, you can't be 500 anymore because we play 17 games, so you can't be an odd number. But one of the things that you're going to hear me say is we got to get to 2-1. If the Raiders are going to have any chance to compete next year, they have to sweep the Miami Dolphins and the New Orleans Saints. Period. That's going to be that's something you're going to hear from me heading into week 1. We cannot lose the home opener to Miami. Can't. Under any circumstance, can't lose that game. Now, if you're Denver, you could lose that game. Or if you're Kansas City or the Chargers, you could lose that game and still be fine. The Raiders can't compete for the playoffs unless they sweep Miami and New Orleans 2 out of the first 3 games. If they do that, anything is possible. Then you could talk about wild card. You could talk about having a decent record in the Week 13 bye week. You could talk about having a dream that they can be competitive. But you can't have that dream if you can't beat Miami and New Orleans. You got to go beat those teams right out of the gate, and I think they will. I think the personnel is better than those 2 teams, but sometimes the team with the best personnel doesn't win every game. But the Raiders are going to have pressure to get out of the gate quickly and start to win. Big Al in San Francisco loves talking Raiders, but more importantly, the NBA. As Big Al, we're going to get a Game 7 between San Antonio and OKC. Who do you like?
I love San Antonio in this game. This is for both. OKC broke through. We all know how good they are, but what we've seen in this series is that the OKC role players who don't get enough court time, not because they're not good players, just because they're so deep, seem to have a hard time adjusting once they get into the games. Look what happened last night. The Spurs came out, kicked them right square in the teeth. We're up by 25 in the third quarter, and the game was over. And I look at OKC and I take a look at the box scores, and I see guys that everybody talks about as these key main role players getting, 5-10 minutes of maybe meaningful time, and then everything else is garbage time. I look at the Spurs, and they seem to be more hungry. I like their wings better. I love their backcourt. The Spurs do. I would like to see. I would like to see the Spurs get a little bit more physical underneath because they're going to need to be if they play the Knickerbockers, because the Knickerbockers are a very physical team. But I look at the Spurs being able to go into OKC. They're not afraid of the moment. They're a hell of a team. And if Wemby plays like he did, we'll call him Game 6 Wemby and not Game 5 Wemby, because Game 5 Wemby didn't, played foul line to foul line and looked awful. I think the Spurs are going to win this game. But, it all comes, he's their best player. He leads the show. But the Spurs role players are better than OKC's role players. I don't think anybody would have said that before the series, but I think we can say that now.
Thank you, Big Al. I think we're going to appreciate it. Excellent phone call. I believe that Oklahoma City is going to win Game 7 at home because of the refs. I think the refs are going to get involved. They're going to get SGA moving. He's going to pick up fouls and N1s, and I think Oklahoma City will just have enough to beat San Antonio. Now, San Antonio, if they get to the finals, Wembanyama versus the Knicks is going to be must-see TV because you have a young elite superstar internationally in Wembanyama going up against the number one media market in New York. So that'll probably be a bigger rating, potentially. But Knicks OKC, I've been thinking about that for a month or two. Once the Knicks started playing great in the playoffs, I started thinking about the Knicks in Oklahoma City. The one thing we should all be looking forward to tomorrow night, everybody, is Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals going to be memorable. Because as Chris in West Oakland started off the show and said, you could be looking at a rivalry between San Antonio and OKC that could last a decade or more. Well, this is going to be a massive chapter in that rivalry. Remember, Sacramento never had a rivalry with the Warriors, right? The Warriors were great after Kobe and Shaq, right? So they didn't have a chance to have that great rivalry, Steph and Clay, with the Lakers the way they could have. They didn't. But when you look at this potential rivalry, if Victor Wembanyama beats OKC and OKC as the road team, wow. I mean, can you imagine what that's going to look like on TV? What people are going to think about that? That's going to be incredible. So as much as we're waiting on the Golden Knights to play, and the Golden Knights are going to open up the Stanley Cup next week, I'm waiting for this Game 7 between Victor Wembanyama and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That could be one for the ages. When you go back to the beginning of Michael Jordan, what do you remember? What do you remember about the beginning of Michael Jordan? If you were old enough to remember, it was Michael Jordan going down to Bird and the Celtics. He didn't have enough. He didn't have enough to get him. He scored 60 points in the Boston Garden. Was it 60 or 61 that he came out and scored, and he couldn't get by Boston? And then Michael Jordan couldn't get by who? He couldn't get by the bad boy Pistons. Pistons won in 89-90. Jordan couldn't get by him. You remember that? That was great. And then Jordan barely got by my Knicks. Jordan had to go through the Eastern Conference Finals to get by Patrick Ewing. And those games were wars. Whoever won those games, that was the NBA Finals. Now San Antonio's got to get by OKC, and that's going to be fun to watch. 702-365-9200. We're jumping into radio only the rest of the way. If you're one of the bricklayers, you're here on YouTube, I'll thank you here as we go. When we come back on the other side, jump on in via radio on the LV Sports Network or the Raiders mobile app. I got about another hour and a half to go. And then if it doesn't drizzle, even if it drizzles, I might be brave enough to get in the pool today. It's a Bucket of Modelo Friday, also brought to you by Boyd Gaming. 10 local casinos in town. Always bet on black.
Can't get it in at center ice. Eichel banks it in. This one will go to the final seconds, and this one is a home ice clincher. For the first time in franchise history, the Knights clinch the Western Conference at T-Mobile Arena. For the third time in 9 years, they're going to the Stanley Cup Final.
That is Dan Duva on the call. He's the voice of the Golden Knights. JT here on Friday, our proud partner. We love connecting everybody to the Golden Knights, especially this time of year. M Resort Spa and Casino has a great Golden Knight bar inside M in the original tower. So if you're looking for a place to watch the game, you want to be there with a lot of Golden Knight fans, go to M Resort Spa and Casino. Go check out their hockey bar, their Golden Knights bar. Remember, you got the Raiders Tavern. You all know that. They also got a spot where you can watch VGK and have a really good time. There are rumblings coming out of Kansas City that the Kansas City Chiefs are keeping an eye on Stephon Diggs to bolster their depleted receiving core. Kansas City has big uncertainty because of that lowlife Rashee Rice, who's a really bad guy, and I said that also back in the day. Really bad guy when you look at some of the receivers they've had in the past. In Kansas City, Tyreek Hill near the top of that list, and Xavier Worthy dealing with some injury limitations. So I think it'd be a great fit for Stephon Diggs. I mean, Stephon Diggs played in the Super Bowl. He's been very productive in Buffalo with Josh Allen. He's gotten an opportunity to play in a lot of big games, and he'd be good for Kansas City. His best years are behind him, but that's the type of player that you can bring in And with Travis Kelce and Worthy, he'll catch balls and he'll get open. So I would rather not see that. I'd rather see him go somewhere else. But there's still some pretty good free agents available out there. There's still a couple of free agents out there, especially at the wide receiver position, and Diggs is one of the big ones. Out to Jerry in Summerlin. Hello, Jerry. Thanks for waiting. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, JT. JT, I'm kind of following the story with the Knights and former coach Cassidy. Mm-hmm. And, I was reading today's RJ, and he was, had some comments about they won't let him interview for another job. Yep. I was wondering what your perspective was, and isn't that a little unusual for a coach to kind of let a coach go and they won't let him find another job? Or?
Yes, it is very frustrating, but Vegas has done everything properly right in regards to building this winning franchise. And Cassidy just broke his silence on this contractual limbo that he's in at this point in time. And clearly, they're at a point now with Vegas where they're focusing on the Stanley Cup. Their management here with this contract and the contract legalities, they don't want to deal with it until after the Stanley Cup. I still think Bruce Cassidy's going to end up the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers or the LA Kings. And I think the Oilers are the best chance because he gets to coach McJesus and Connor McDavid.
Yeah, I understand that. I wonder if Tortorella doesn't take this job for next year. I was wondering if that would impact their hiring of another coach. Well, with the little trouble they're having with Cassidy, but that's just my opinion.
Well, first off, thanks for the call. I think it would be nuts for John Tortorella to not take advantage of this great success and sign a long-term contract to be the face of the Golden Knights. Now, I don't know if he's going to be around long because he kind of wears on people, but the Golden Knights are reluctant to release Cassidy into the market right now. And they know their strategy and their past experiences. Both the Kings and Oilers are direct Pacific Division rivals. And a coach of Cassidy's level will have an effect on the Golden Knights. So it'll get wrapped up here in a week, and I think that Bruce Cassidy quickly will be named the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers, and he'll have a good chance of taking them deep into the playoffs. Hour one down, one more hour to go. We'll reset with the monologue here at the top of the hour. Today's topic is Tyler Linderbaum. I think he's a hell of a player. He better be. Spent a lot of money to get him. But I think everything changes if Linderbaum is as good as delivered, and so far it seems that way. We are brought to you by the 872 Laborers, led by Tommy White, building the city on time and on budget. Welcome back, everybody. JT from home today. Clay Baker back in the studios. It's our final hour of the week. We'd love to hear from you as we continue here on the flagship of the Raiders. Raider Nation Radio. I've been watching NFL Network all day today. They're doing a football life. I turned it on this morning. It was a football life of Ronnie Lott. Wow, Ronnie Lott, one of my all-time favorite people and greatest players of all time. After that, they had a football life of Lawrence Taylor. After that, they had the football life of Charles Woodson. Then they had the football life of Bruce Smith. And now they're doing the football life of Sean Taylor. Really good, man. I love it this time of year when NFL Network, they just don't throw on some garbage studio show. Just put on games of the past and great documentaries like this, A Football Life. A lot of Raiders show up in A Football Life, man, if you've been watching. Hey, next week, Phil Villapiano will join us. He has a brand new book out. And he only had 10 advanced copies, and he sent me one, which I thought was very kind from Phil. So I'm getting it. It should be here today or tomorrow. He expressed it to me, and then we'll have him on. So Phil Villapiano's new book, we'll dive into that next week. Before we get out of here, next hour, we're here for another hour. Vegas is in the Stanley Cup final. We're looking for hockey fans who want to get into this. Now, we don't know the opponent yet, but I sense that Carolina will win tonight. They'll close out Montreal 4-1. Something interesting on Montreal, one of their former players, Claude Lemieux, committed suicide yesterday at the age of 60. Always reminding people, if you need help, ask for it. Claude Lemieux, a 4-time Stanley Cup champion, one of the fiercest players ever to play. Some people thought one of the dirtiest players, but one of the greatest teammates, if you ever had him, took his life. and he played for the Canadians, and he brought the torch out just 4 days ago, and he took his life right after that. So you can't imagine the demons that he had at this point in his life, and that's a massive story. You know, Kyle Busch passed away about a week ago. That was a big story. So there's a lot happening in sports other than the games. We'll look at the schedule a little bit later on this hour. We're going to have the NBA Finals. It's the Knicks and the winner of San Antonio OKC. They're going to play to a 7-game series tomorrow night. And I think Oklahoma City will probably win that game. They'll probably win that game at home. But if Victor Wembanyama can win that game, that would be one for the ages. That'd be great for him. That'd be unbelievable if he could end up doing that. There are a lot of problems happening with the New York Giants. I don't talk politics on any of my shows unless politics entered sports, and they have in New York with the Giants. Jackson Dart, their quarterback, introduced President Trump at a rally. He has the right to do that no matter what you think of any president at any time. Jackson Dart introduced the president. He said it was a unique opportunity. Well, today, Abdul Carter, the former, he was great at Penn State. He hasn't been great in the pros. He doubled down and said some things are bigger than football. So today, a firestorm has gone off with the New York Giants. So he went off today at a press conference and said, quote, "If he chooses to align himself with a man like President Trump, it's my responsibility based on what I believe and what I stand on to not only show my teammates that I'm against that, and I will show the world." Good luck, John Harbaugh. He's got his young quarterback who hangs out with a beautiful Instagram influencer. And he's got Abdul Carter, who last year was falling asleep in meetings and coming late. And he's railing against the quarterback. As I just tweeted out, John Harbaugh, all he had to do was wait a week. If he just waited one extra week, he could have took the Bills' job, but that wasn't available. And he took the Giants' job. I think John Harbaugh is going to have his hands full dealing with these two guys. And that's not even Cam Scatterbo, who might be the biggest knucklehead out of all of them. And Malik Neighbors. And Malik Neighbors, who to me could be interesting also. A lot of people are waiting on a trade that could go down, and people are wondering what's going to happen with A.J. Brown. Can A.J. Brown end up a Patriot? Yeah, I think the Patriots want him. I think Mike Vrabel wants him. But a lot of people are looking at a different angle than that. That's the Diana Rossini story, as it looked like Diana Rossini at one point was the NFL insider who was trying to make that trade. And now we know about some form of a relationship with Mike Vrabel. And a lot of fans in New England are giving pause now because Vrabel hasn't cleared up what happened with Diana Rossini. Diana Rossini hasn't spoke. And everybody thinks A.J. Brown, who's definitely going to leave Philadelphia. He's definitely leaving Philadelphia. That is the best fit. People have asked me if I think if A.J. Brown would be a great fit with the Raiders. A.J. Brown's a hell of a player. A.J. Brown is something that the Raiders don't have, a number one. If he ended up coming to the Raiders, he'd be a number one wide receiver, but I think the price tag is too expensive. I think it'll cost too much to do a deal like that. If the Raiders were in the playoffs, and it was year 2 or 3 of Mendoza, and they needed a player at that level, then I'd say yeah. But as the Raiders are coming off the worst season in football with only 3 wins, I don't think that's a priority for them now. But crazier things have happened. So NFL news, if you want to jump in. I want to stay with some hockey. If you want to get through with the hockey, 702-365-9200 is the number. And for the Golden Knights, who would you rather play? It looks like we're going to play Carolina. They are a very similar team to the team that we have here in Vegas. They match up really closely. And if they go up against each other, it might be a little bit more boring than people expect, but I think it could be a lot of fun. Final call for the San Antonio Spurs. They beat Oklahoma City last night, and they did it in impressive fashion. I'm going to get into Oklahoma City quitting because they quit last night in the middle of the game, but here's how it sounded on Spurs Radio. Okay, don't know if we have that. Thought we had that. All right, so if you want to get in, we'll talk about that game, and we'll jump in and hear from you, 702-365-9200, and we'll jump in. I personally believe the Knicks match up better. They match up better, in my opinion, with San Antonio, but OKC is clearly the better team. And I think OKC is going to get, in my opinion, they're definitely going to get some calls in this Game 7. All right, let's get to the final call of that game. Here's how it sounded.
Carr has the puck with 9 seconds. Colorado can't get it in at center ice. Eichel banks it in. This one will go to the final seconds, and this one is a home ice clincher. For the first time in franchise history, the Knights clinch the Western Conference at T-Mobile Arena. For the third time in 9 years, they're going to the Stanley Cup Final.
I have no problem playing that because it's our team. Here's the final call of the NBA game last night where Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs came storming back.
And there will be a Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals. You can turn out the lights in the gym here tonight. Spurs are headed home and headed back to Oklahoma City with a W for Game 7 coming up on Saturday. 118-91 the final here tonight.
That Spurs radio on the call, they did it in impressive fashion. Wembanyama did everything he needed to do in that game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a great player, but Wembanyama showed up. Wembanyama was fantastic in that game. He hit 3 threes early in the game, and that kind of got the crowd into it and silenced everybody else on this game. For Oklahoma City, no one really showed up, and they didn't play more than 28 minutes in the game. So SGA played 28 minutes. He had only 15 points in the game, while Victor Wembanyama played 28 minutes and had 28 points. He was 4 of 9 from 3. He had 10 rebounds in the game, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocked shots. I mean, when this guy shows up to play, he plays at an alarming level. He only had 1 no-show game in the entire playoffs. Just 1 no-show game in the entire playoffs, which they lost, and now they are right back into this. 702-365-9200 if you want to get in. We're talking about Tyler Linderbaum today. So if you're a fan of Tyler Linderbaum, that's what I led with today. I think he is the X factor. He is the reason why this team is going to have an opportunity to do something, I think, really special and turn it around quickly here. What do I mean by quickly? Someone asked me that in the chat, and I said quickly. And that was my answer, not being a wise ass. I think the Raiders, if Linderbaum plays at a very high level, can turn this thing around very quickly. Turning it around and getting to the playoffs? Probably not. Probably not in year 1. But why not think that way, the way that the Patriots thought about it last year, the Washington Commanders thought about it the year before? It can happen. And the way it's going to happen is Linderbaum's got to be the head of the sphere. He's got to come out and do some incredible things. Here's more from Andrew Janocko. We got a few minutes I want to hit on from yesterday as Janocko met the media. He's the offensive coordinator coming in under Clint Kubiak, even though Kubiak is going to call the plays. I think Janocko is well-versed. Here's a few minutes of what he said.
What's it like to have Tom Brady in the building? Saw him out there at practice today. Have you picked up anything from him since joining the team?
Yeah, Tom's an unbelievable resource for us. He's been very open. He's somebody that we can pick up the phone and call, or you see him around the building. He's the greatest of all time. So getting to be around him every day and any knowledge that you can pick up from him, just a great resource to have and something that it's very appealing to sitting in my chair.
Where does the listen to your feet mantra come from?
That goes back a long way. That's something we believe in. Whether it started with the quarterback position, but it really is everything about our offense that we build ourselves. We build our brains, and then we build ourselves from the ground up. So if you're listening to your feet, whether you're a quarterback and you're progressing on time within your footwork, or you're an offensive line and you're gaining ground on your first step, or you're a receiver and how are my feet helping to contribute to my route depth? All those things. Are we gaining ground on our first step in the wide zone? So everything, our building blocks start there.
What's your excitement level for the possibility to play Brock more in a receiver role and open the possibility to probably go out there a little bit more?
Yeah, I think we're gonna get the best 11 on the field whenever we can. We're gonna try to, that's what we're using OTAs for. the way that we can utilize these guys to the best of their abilities. Learning ourselves, learning our personnel is something that we're doing right now. What are the guys? What are the guys' route trees? What do they do well in the run game? How are they helping in protection? All that stuff. So maybe not one thing in particular as far as lining one guy up one place, but just learning the guys right now and how to maximize their ability.
You're the best 11. Clay mentioned a competition between Jack Besh and Dante Thornton. How is that competition going so far?
Yeah, I think all those guys are competing their butts off. They come every day. They come to work. They put in time. You can tell they're studying at night because they come in with a notebook full of questions. They're always peppering Coach Azzani with questions. It's not just those two, but that whole position group is exciting because they're guys that really work hard.
You obviously have a good relationship with Clint. You guys have worked together a long time, but this is a different dynamic, right? The head coach and OC. I guess, how have you kind of talked about how to approach that part of the new responsibilities and roles you have?
I think that's something we grow every day. It's maybe not something that you sit down and write out every single thing, but it's something we grow with every single day. And we have the relationship where we can talk about everything. Really, we talk about everything we have for several years. Whether it be X's and O's, whether it be how we're breaking the huddle, whether it be what Will and Izzy are studying in school that week. But it's just having that relationship where we can talk to each other about anything and everything, and that's how that relationship grows and evolves. We see something that needs fixed, we fix it, whether it be between us and our communication or the entire offense.
These are voluntary. Can you talk about the importance of being able to work with the guys this early and having pretty much everybody that's healthy out there on the field with you?
I think it's a huge advantage. Credit to our guys. Credit to our guys coming in, wanting to get better and wanting to go compete. So it's a huge advantage. Not every team and organization is like that. So we're using every single minute. We try to make sure that every single minute that we're with these guys count, that we're not wasting a second, not wasting a rep on the field, in the classroom, in the meal room. Making sure that those guys are with our strength staff. They're maximizing that potential, and our nutritionists, our whole organization's bought into making sure these guys are in the building. We're getting the most out of them.
What's the expectations for Trey Tucker in this offense?
Like all those guys, the entire room, don't want to just single out one guy, but all these guys maximizing their potential, getting the best out of Trey, taking what he's done good and then maximizing that, and then trying to get specific things for him and every guy to work on, coming up with a plan for each guy and how to maximize them, how to get the ball in their hands, and what they do once they get the ball in their hands.
All right, that's a little bit of Andrew Janocko, offensive coordinator, yesterday at Raiders HQ, and wow, a guy can speak. He's really good. It's all about the chemistry now. Everybody's getting to know each other. This is not a 3-4 year coaching staff that's been with this team. They're getting to be familiar with the players, and they don't know them well, and now they're getting to know them in a crash course. And it seems like everybody likes what they're seeing, because there's no way John Spidek brings these guys back, the returning players, if he doesn't think it's going to be a fit in the short term with Clint Kubiak and Andrew Janocko and these coaches. A lot of players aren't back for that reason. The players that are here, some are under contract. Some have value-based contracts that aren't that. They're on rookie contract, like Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell's on a rookie contract. There's no value in cutting Aiden O'Connell. The Raiders are getting tremendous value having Aiden O'Connell in the building. He's a good player. Now, that value can change if a quarterback gets hurt and they want to move someone like Aiden O'Connell. But everybody who's trotting out to that practice field to practice at OTAs is there for a reason. This coaching staff, and especially the executives led by John Spidek, believe that they have a chance to make this team and be here. They picked up 7 or 8 new starters in free agency. I think they picked up 2 to 3 new starters in the draft. That's roughly 10 plus new starters out of 22. That's a big turnover. And fortunately, the 10 new starters, that would be 2 to 3 in the draft and the 7 in free agency, seem to be good fits, really good fits. I love the free agent acquisitions, the fact that Max Crosby ended up staying, and Tyler Linderbaum is the premier free agent that they have. I mean, there's a lot of good things happening from a personnel standpoint, and now the Raiders are getting them on the field, instituting the playbook and the philosophy. And I can tell you one thing, the players all get along great, and that was even before this regime. Former players, you had a knucklehead from time to time come through the locker room. We know about that. Christian Wilkins, or a player or so. But overall, this group gets together, and they're organized and they love each other, led by Max Crosby. When we come back, more on the NBA Finals. I'll dive into that. The Stanley Cup Final. Tyler Linderbaum, OTAs from yesterday. We got some new partners to welcome. Yeah, I'm going to mention them here before the end of the show. New tequila, new vodka, new tavern group, all poised to join us for the upcoming football season on the flagship Raider Nation Radio.
Brought to you by M Resort Spa and Casino, the official hotel of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Shotgun snap. He's looking down the middle. There's some pressure. He's gobbled up and sacked again. Crosby cleaned up the hit. Laulu first through. Herbert tried to sneak up the middle. And Crosby with his second half sack of the ball game, his second sack today.
All right, JT back with you as we continue on a Friday, a not getaway Friday, a good weekend in town here Friday, watching sports and excited about what's about to happen with the Stanley Cup, with the Golden Knights as we wait for the official move of Carolina to advance and take on our Vegas Golden Knights and see what this will look like here. And I was up super early this morning for whatever reason and did a podcast. You can find my podcast with my podcast partner, Tom Looney. We got a little ranking. Came in 19th in a podcast award category the other day, which was nice. You might not have heard that podcast. I hope you do. It's JT and Looney, wherever you download your podcast. And we talked a lot. We kick off what we call our summer series. Every summer we do a couple of different types of podcasts here where we talk about things about the summer. Obviously sports related, but more about lifestyle and travel and some of the road trips that we're going on. He's going on one. I just came back from Maui, and we talk about some travel issues and all that. Maybe you like it. It's wherever you get your podcast, at JT and Looney, and we're excited about that. So the schedule for sports now coming up here is very interesting for me, as we said in the first hour in the monologue about what happens here at the beginning of June with both the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Finals, and then sports kind of drops off a cliff until football starts again. And football is year-round for us here on Raider Nation Radio. If we have things to talk about with the Raiders, yesterday at OTAs, we played a lot of sound. I've been playing sound throughout the course of the show today, some sound bites. But, you know, as I look at the calendar with the Raiders and when training camp is officially going to be announced here near the end of July, and then we jump right in with the 3 preseason games and then roster development and all that, and then the schedule jumps into us at the end of July into August preseason games, and then the start in September for the home opener against Miami. What happens here in June is we're looking for some different topics and some fun topics, and we get bonus coverage here because we get the Golden Knights for another 2 weeks, which is really important for us because we're the flagship of the Knights in our building here at Lotus Broadcasting. So a lot of our partners that you hear during our commercial spot breaks or you hear our live reads, they're also on the same station of the Golden Knights right across the hallway. So we're really excited as a business model here, as a radio station with multiple radio stations here. Everybody is walking around the building pretty excited about what's going to happen. So tonight it's the Canadians at the Hurricanes. I expect it to be over pretty easily, not because the Canadians are going to quit. I don't think they're going to quit. They're a proud franchise, but they're just getting overrun by the Hurricanes. And when the Hurricanes win, we'll have the matchup now. And we'll dive into that at the beginning of next week with the schedule. Some of the guests that we have, the Golden Knights, have reached out to me, and we'll try to get some broadcasters on, maybe a player, because there's some downside now, and jump into it. But I think that's going to be a really interesting series to watch because both teams are similar. I don't think the Hurricanes are too fast. Vegas is a veteran team. They're not too fast. Both of these teams really check well. Both their coaches want them to hit hard, forecheck, and do all that. So some people, some of the hockey diehards are telling me that this might not be the most beautiful series to watch because both these teams play a similar style, and they're going to bunch up at center ice, and you're going to need a long pass or two to break someone free. Who knows? I'm excited about it, but the rest of the hockey world is not, because not a lot of people respect Vegas. They think we're too young of a hockey town. Fair. 9 years, 3 Stanley Cup appearances, really make the Canadians super bitter on this topic. I mean bitter about that. And Canada has many more hockey fans than we do here in the United States, pound for pound, but they're not happy. And the Hurricanes are one of those franchises, really good, fantastic. They got a great team, but you couldn't point them out on a map. You couldn't point out where their arena is. If I asked all of our Knights fans, what arena do they play in? What's the town of their arena? Most people wouldn't know. So for the ratings, and they keep telling you how great the ratings are, I don't know what the ratings are going to look like with 2 American teams again. It sure would look good if it was Montreal and Vegas. And I don't think that Montreal has the legs or the ability to fight back and come back after trailing 3-1. Claude Lemieux, who unfortunately took his life yesterday, and that story's wild. My timeline, I follow a lot of hockey on my X, and my timeline was flooded with videos and pictures of Claude Lemieux, who did come back from a 3-1 deficit for the Devils and end up winning the Cup, but it is very hard to do that. So with hockey, expect a big push next week when we get back. I'll be on Sunday on Mad Dog Sports Radio, but next week we're going to push really hard. Then I'm going back east near the end of the week next week to jump in and see my family, and I'll watch a little bit of hockey on the road. But as I mentioned, the NBA, what's going to happen with the NBA, we have a Game 7. And if you watched the game last night between the Spurs and the Thunder got blown out. And they did something at the end of the game which is troublesome. End of the game, which was end of the third quarter. So there was about a minute to go in the third quarter, and they started emptying out the bench. So I went to my phone and I started reminding everybody that that is quitting. There's no other way to say it. You can be kind about it. The game's over. The game's over before the start of the fourth quarter in San Antonio. It is flat out done. The Thunder scored 13 points total in the third quarter. They're outscored 32-13, and they raised the white flag. Now, it was probably smart for them to get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander out of the game. I'm looking at the box score again here. They thought, and Dagnow, their head coach, thought, let's get these guys out of the game because obviously we're going to be playing in a critical Game 7, and they need to have their legs. So as I look at who played and the amount of minutes in this game, very concerning that the reigning champions quit on national television last night. SGA played 28 minutes. Lou Dort played 23 minutes in the game. Jalen Williams, who's always hurt, 26 minutes in the game and only 4 points. I mean, they were god-awful in this game. And from three-point percentage, they were 10 of 40. They shot 25%. The Spurs came out and they were ripping threes. The Spurs ended up shooting 37%, 15 of 41. Victor Wembanyama, that was good that they won in a blowout. They were able to get him out of the game early. Wembanyama only played 28 minutes. De'Aaron Fox, 26 minutes. So when you look at this team, Castle played 32 minutes overall. Both teams realized that the game was over in the fourth quarter. And how do you feel about that? If you want to hit me up on X at JT the Brick, when your team in the middle of a contest decides at the end of the game to empty out the bench the entire fourth quarter and quit. I don't know any other way to describe it other than quitting. Now, last year we dealt with the tanking conversation with the Raiders. We all knew it. You know, I hate tanking. I hate tanking. And one of the ways that you can professionally, air quote, tank is not play players at the end of the year if they're banged up, i.e. Max Crosby, Brock Bowers down the stretch. Brock was hurt for most of the year. There was no gain on keeping Brock Bowers in those final games, especially the last game. And we all knew that Max was injured. Max ended up having surgery. But what real quitting is in the NBA, you don't see in the NFL. In the NFL, if you're playing in a game and you're down 34-0 in the fourth quarter, you take the quarterback out of the game. You don't take the offensive line normally out of the game. You leave them in. All right, maybe you'll start moving some offensive linemen out and putting in some backups, but that rarely happens. The linebackers stay in the game. The cornerbacks typically stay in the game. You don't see teams waving the white flag. And yesterday, Oklahoma City quit. So before everybody tells me how much better they are than the Knicks, remember the Knicks were down 29 points in game 1, 29 against Cleveland. And they didn't start pulling all the starters. They came back and had one of the greatest comebacks in Knicks history. Different scenario? I don't think so. When you're getting paid $40 million a game, or $30 million, a year, and it turns out to be $400,000 a game, and you got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the bench the entire fourth quarter, they brought him back for a few minutes, and they took him right out again. It shows you that OKC, the reigning champs, can quit, and they did in that game, and that they're saving their legs for their championship game, which will be Game 7 coming up. They get that game at home, and that's going to be a really big part of our weekend now to see what they're going to be able to do. That game is Saturday, May 30th, Spurs at Thunder. It'll be a 5 o'clock start on NBC Peacock. That'll be 8 Eastern on Saturday night. And already here, Oklahoma City is a 3.5-point favorite, which is fair because they're playing at home. But what an opportunity for Victor Wembanyama. What an opportunity for Victor Wembanyama to come out and have a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar moment, a Bill Russell moment, to be a very young player at this stage in his career and go on the road for a Game 7 and go out there and beat the Thunder would be iconic. Wembanyama versus SGA, that's how good it will be. Also, Mitchell Robinson, who's not a great player, but he's a great, I don't want to say agitator or instigator, but the big man for the Knicks, who really all he can do is dunk. He broke his pinky on his shooting hand, and he can't shoot much. All he can do is dunk. He'll be good to go. That was announced today. Had immediate surgery. He'll be ready to go for the Knicks. He's going to come in as a defender. He'll be fine. They'll shoot him up. They'll have him in some type of mini brace for that game. So it's not like Jalen Brunson can't go. He'll be limited in the NBA Finals, but he's a bench player and will come off the bench, and he'll bring the Knicks tremendous energy, especially at Madison Square Garden. Quick reminder, the Knicks are the road team. No matter who wins, the Thunder or the Spurs, the Knicks will be the road team, and that series will start off with the Knicks at the Thunder or the Spurs. As a diehard Knicks fan, I'd rather play the Spurs. I think the Thunder are a little bit better. I'm not one of those guys who say, I want to play the best. I just want to win. And I think the Knicks have a better chance to beat the Spurs than they would against the Thunder. So that's a little bit of scheduling news here, because we're fortunate to have another hockey game to watch tonight as the Golden Knights sit back and wait. And then we'll have to wait till Saturday for Game 7 of the NBA Finals to see how that plays out. And I think that's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be good, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking that next week. I'm excited to have both the teams that I support, both the Vegas Golden Knights and the Knicks, playing in their finals. That's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully I'll be able to catch one of these games. As I mentioned, I'm traveling to see my mom and dad. My dad just turned 88 on May 24th. Obviously, I missed his birthday as I was here. But going to go back and see him back east with my mom and dad, and we have a lot lined up. So I'll be watching the Knicks from New York, and I'll be watching some of the Golden Knights series from Long Island, New York, and upstate New York. But I'll be watching with my family, so that will take away a little bit of the pain. I'll do some live videos on Instagram at JTTheBrickLV, and we'll be reshaping our YouTube channel as we get you ready for Raiders training camp. Please give us a follow if you haven't already on YouTube at JT The Brick. Real easy. It takes less than 5 seconds to hit subscribe, and you get everything that we're doing here. All right, on Friday, as you know, we'd like to thank our proud partners. We do have a new announcement, which I'll be talking about on some of our new partners as we get going into the summer. Yeah, when we come back, everybody, let me look at my Apple iPhone calendar here as it's here on the 29th. When we come back here on Monday, it is June 1st. Summer to me, growing up in New York, was June, July, and August. Summer here in Vegas is year-round pretty much, and it's going to be a great weekend of sun, fun, the potential for hockey, some golf. Can't wait for it. We'll thank our proud partners coming up on the other side. All right, we're wrapping it up here on Raider Nation Radio on this glorious Friday. from home, where it looks like it's going to rain here off the mean streets of Summerlin. We'll see if something's blowing through or not. Thanks to Clay Baker, as always, for everything that he's done this week. And good to be back from my excursion to Maui and come back, go to Raiders OTAs, and get a chance to talk to you about the Golden Knights and what VGK has done this week, my Knicks, and all of that, as I just mentioned. I'm excited about the sports and the way sports are going to look here over the next couple of weeks. Earlier today, I did a podcast. It's up on our YouTube feed, JT and Looney. We talked about a bunch of different things. Please go check that out. And I want to thank our proud partners as we do that on every Friday. I've been talking to people during the chat, and we got some new partners coming in that I'd like to mention. Fletcher Azul Tequila, one of the greatest brands of tequila you will ever have. We've had some tequila partners over the years. Why? Because Raider fans like tequila. It's a really good fit. Beer, Modelo, tequila is a great fit for this show. So we're excited to welcome them as they're going to be starting here pretty quickly. Aspen Vodka, they are a proud partner of the Raiders. So if you go to any event at the Raiders, you're going to see Aspen Vodka. They've stepped up with us, too. I want to thank them. And our good friends, a new partner of ours, Flowing Tides. They got a lot of taverns, not only here in town, but they got taverns in Reno. And they really appreciate the fact that a lot of people listen to us, not only here in Vegas, but listen to us in Reno. And I didn't realize until we had a meeting with them, and they talked about their bars and the people up there in Reno. So that meant a lot to us. And we'll be mentioning some new ones and some of our old friends who are going to be coming back here for football. I want to thank Tommy White and the 872 Laborers, everything they do. M Resort, Spa and Casino. They had that big Charles Woodson event, which was fabulous. Charles Woodson Bourbon Whiskey, they're with us starting now throughout football season. So thanks to the whole team at Woodson Bourbon Whiskey for everything they do. The Black Hole. Go to theblackhole.com and go see what they're doing there. Black Hole's got some really big ideas. Really big ideas. Mark Jones and that entire team, man. What they want to do for the Raiders and Raider fans is fantastic, especially with the schedule this year and the travel as they're putting it up there at the Black Hole. Go to theblackhole.com. Modelo, the fighting spirit of Modelo. Thank you to their entire team at Constellation Brands. Modelo, proud partner of the show. We do everything with them, and we're putting together a plan where we're going to be doing more with a lot of remotes coming up here. The DeCastro Verde Law Group, I'll be back on Monday for Mendoza Monday. The Brothers Win, brotherswin.com. Finley Volvo Cars of Las Vegas, 215 and Rainbow, as I employ everybody just to pull over on Rainbow at the 215. You'll see Finley Volvo. Park your car, go in, test drive a vehicle. I think you'll be blown away. Mike's supposed to be coming in studio next week. And Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love, the best chicken fingers in the world. You know that at Raising Cane's, they make that sauce in store every day. You know, they don't refrigerate it from 3 days before. Every day the sauce is made. They're in those stores. You know it's going to be fresh. And we got to also thank our great friends. I mean, all these good partners we have. How lucky am I overall to be able to say we have all these great partners. Boyd Gaming, 10 local properties. You know, there's been some casino news this week. A big casino changing hands. Boyd Gaming, one of the most stable casino brands, the official local casino partner of the Raiders and proud partner of our show here overall. So thank you for letting me thank our partners. If you'd like to partner with our show, I'd be humbled to say we'll do whatever we can for you. We love to help you, and we love to help you with your charity work if you're going to do something like that. And you want to get the word out here. Anybody, this goes to every caller, every listener, the people who are involved here. If you have something really important happening in your life as a charity, a foundation, please let me know. I have no problem promoting it. As long as it's real, we can see it. We can look on a website. I'd be honored to help in any way that I can. Wanted to wrap it up with a couple of Raider thoughts because after being at OTAs yesterday, saw a lot of people tweeting and talking about it. Watched the local news last night, and everybody's trying to get a feel for what's going on over there at Raiders headquarters. Again, as I said in the opening hour of the show, what's happening is all business. We got a head coach that's very serious, but what I slept on last night that I wanted to bring up again as we wrap up the show is that they're going to be tweaking this offense at a level that they want everybody to be versatile. So that's going to be the code word, is versatile. When you look at the versatility of this team and what they're able to do, how they line up Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers. They gave you a clue on Ashton Genty when Clint Kubiak looking at Christian McCaffrey, what they want to do with him. Washington comes over, not a backup running back, but yeah, everybody's a backup to Ashton Genty. They're going to be so versatile with Tyler Linderbaum and this offensive line that they're going to work on a lot of these checks, changing the plays at the line of scrimmage, hopefully, because they have a very experienced play caller coming in here. Janocko knows what he's doing in regards to his concepts with Clint Kubiak, who's very experienced as an offensive play caller. Clint Kubiak's going to be calling these plays, and he is a gifted offensive play caller. They want everybody to be adaptive and to be able to move. So when Tyler Linderbaum gets to the line of scrimmage with 17, 18 seconds left on the play clock, they're able to check out of a play and go with something else. That's my new big takeaway heading into the weekend. The versatility of what the coach is going to demand by all his players on the offensive line. Be ready to move. Be ready to change. We're going to ask you to do something different very quickly, and you better be able to adapt to it. That's what Brock Bowers does. Line them up in the slot. Line them up wide. Line them up in the backfield. Do whatever we're going to do, because Brock Bowers, I think, is the linchpin of this entire offense. Man, did he look good yesterday. He looks good all the time. But now we got Brock Bowers at a position in his career coming into his third year where he talked about the sense of urgency yesterday. We played some of that in the initial monologue, that Brock wants this thing to be urgent. He doesn't want to rebuild. He doesn't want to get to year 5. Imagine Brock Bowers coming into year 3 where he gets to year 5 and the Raiders aren't competitive. No way. This thing's got to flip now. And I think what jumped out at me yesterday when I drove back from practice is that whatever drills they're working on, whatever they're working out on as they break down film and in the meeting rooms, is going to be about getting this offense up to speed very quickly. Mendoza's going to be learning from Aiden O'Connell and Kirk Cousins. He's going to get reps, and he's going to get fewer reps than the average number 1 pick overall, because it looks like he's not going to be starting. It's going to be Kirk Cousins. And every starting rep that Kirk Cousins gets is a starting rep that Mendoza doesn't get. I don't know if I like that. I've been very transparent on this. I don't know if I love that, but that's the direction it looks like the organization is going in. So when you look at Cousins, I was telling a buddy the other day that if Cousins wants to keep his job, which means he doesn't want to go to the bench, he wants to be the starter for 10 weeks, say it's 10 or 8 or 6, the way that Cousins is going to stay on the field is twofold. He's got to sweep Miami and New Orleans. That's a minimum. He's got to win those first 2 out of 3 games. He's better, Kirk Cousins, than the Miami Dolphins and the New Orleans Saints. We have an advantage at the quarterback in those 2 games, because week 2 is the Charger game, and Cousins does have nowhere near an advantage over Justin Herbert. Sorry, that's fact. And then secondly, I think you're going to see Kirk Cousins feeding the ball to Ashton Genty in the passing game and Brock Bowers to make sure that those guys have such a fresh start and big start to this season, because Brock ended the season not playing, started the season injured, and Ashton Genty was just running into a wall, seems like on every possession. So we're going to see now Kirk Cousins, a smart guy, spending a lot of time in the OTAs and training camp trying to get the ball out quickly to Bowers and Genty. Jalen Naylor, great. Trey, fantastic. Jack Besh, more power to you. But from what I've seen covering Cousins' entire career is that he's not going to want to give up the seat. I don't want to give up the seat. Why am I hosting 3 nights a week on Mad Dog? Because I don't want to give up a show. I want to keep the seat. And I think Cousins, if he wants to keep the seat, is going to have to get Bowers going. And seeing Bowers and him connect yesterday, and Aiden looked really good from everything I read and saw, these quarterbacks are going to go to Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty and say, you guys are going to stay on the field. I'm going to get you the ball, and Tyler Linderbaum is going to check out of certain plays at the line of scrimmage because Clint Kubiak is teaching now Tyler Linderbaum to figure out how to dismantle the views of this old offensive line and the old scheme and come in with something fresh, which is going to be led by the point of the arrow, which is Tyler Linderbaum, whoever the quarterback is behind him. But the two immovable objects are going to be Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers in the early stages of their career where they want to win now, and they need to touch the ball as much as possible. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks to Clay again. We'll shut the machine down Sunday, Mad Dog Sports Radio, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Afternoon radio on Sunday. We'll be back here on Monday. We got a big week of radio lined up before I head out on the road to go to New York and see my family, which will be my priority at the end of next week. Q's coming up next with a great show as always. Listen to the channel. Check out all of our social media. And if you missed any portion of the show, it's right there at lvsportsnetwork.com. Have a great weekend, everybody, and thanks for listening to Raider Nation Radio.